Witness the glory, the chaos, the rise and fall of Europe.
For a solid 1,000 years, the Roman Empire was, well, it was everything, the absolute center of the Western world. When you think of law, of allegiance, of a lasting legacy, you think of Rome. But even the mightiest empires can fall. Today, we're diving into one of history's most fascinating moments, the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. And trust me, its end was not at all what it seemed.
One single year, 476 AD. This is the date that's always etched into the history books, right? It's framed as the moment the light of Rome was just, boop, switched off. But what really happened in that fateful year? Was it some sudden cataclysmic event, or was it more like the final, quiet breath after a long and painful illness?
So let's start with the common story, the one most of us probably heard in school. The idea that in 476 AD, the largest, most powerful empire the West had ever known came to this dramatic, sudden stop. It's a powerful image, for sure, but it might just be a myth. What's really interesting here is just how precise that is. September 4th, 476. Pinpointing a specific date like that, when the last emperor was removed from power, it gives us a really neat and tidy ending to what was, in reality, an incredibly messy story. It's simple, it's memorable, and it frames the fall of Rome like it was a single final event in some grand play. And that's the crucial question, isn't it? An empire isn't just a city or a leader. It's this hugely complex web of economies, cultures, armies, and infrastructure all built up over centuries. Could something that vast, that enduring, really just vanish overnight? The reality, as we're about to see, is so much more complex and, frankly, so much more fascinating.
To really get the significance of 476 AD, we have to zoom out, way out. The fall wasn't a sudden collapse at all. It was the end result of centuries of pressure, both from outside its borders and, just as importantly, from within. It was, in classic terms, a death by 1,000 cuts.
Just take a look at this timeline. For nearly 100 years before the last emperor was shown the door, the signs were all there. In 378, a Roman army was completely annihilated at the Battle of Adrianople. Then in 410, something happened that was unthinkable. For the first time in 800 years, the city of Rome itself was sacked by the Visigoths. That was a massive psychological blow. Then you had Attila the Hun just rampaging through Italy. So by the time we even get to 476, the empire was already just a shadow of its former self. Each one of these events wasn't a cause, but a symptom of a much deeper decay. And these were the cracks that were splitting the empire apart from the inside. While enemies were gathering at the gates, Rome was consuming itself. Political instability wasn't just a problem, it was a constant state of being. You had endless civil wars, with dozens of emperors rising and falling in just a century, which drained the state of money and soldiers. This, of course, fueled a severe economic crisis, with insane inflation and taxes so high they were crushing the population. And who were those taxes paying for? Armies that weren't even really Roman anymore. They relied on mercenaries, soldiers fighting for a paycheck, not for the empire, whose loyalty was always up for grabs. On top of all that, throw in devastating plagues that wiped out huge parts of the population, and you have a perfect storm. Okay, so now let's zoom back into 476 AD and the actual human drama at the heart of the story. Because the end to the Western Roman Empire didn't happen with a thunderous battle. It happened with a quiet, almost pathetic transfer of power centered on a boy who was never supposed to be in charge. On this slide, you've got the two key players. On one side, Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor. He was just a teenager, a puppet put on the throne by his father. His name is an incredible twist of irony. Romulus, the mythical founder of Rome, and Augustus, its first great emperor. He was even mockingly nicknamed Augustulus, which means Little Augustus. And on the other side, you have Odoacer, a powerful Germanic general, a barbarian in the eyes of the Romans, who was the commander of the very mercenary troops meant to be defending Italy. This comparison says it all. The old power was weak and symbolic, while the new power was real, military, and standing right there. So here's the crucial point. The end was surprisingly anticlimactic. Odoacer and his men demanded land in Italy as payment for their service. When the government said no, he simply took power. He deposed the boy emperor, which means he just formally removed him from the throne. There wasn't a major war. He didn't even kill Romulus. He actually put him on a pension and sent him to live in a nice villa in the countryside. The Roman Empire in the West ended, not with a bang, but with a forced retirement. So what happened next?
For the average person living in Italy or Gaul, did the sun rise on September 5th, 476 to a completely different world? Did the lights of civilization just suddenly go out across Europe? Well, the answer isn't that simple at all.
The transition was gradual. What really ended was the single, central political authority of Rome in the West. In its place, all these different Germanic kingdoms, led by Visigoths, Franks, Vandals, they just formalized the control they pretty much already had. And it's so critical to remember, only the western half of the empire fell. Over in the east, the Roman Empire, which we now call the Byzantine Empire, would continue to thrive for another 1,000 years from its capital in Constantinople.
This brings us to that old idea of the Dark Ages. For a long time, this whole period was viewed as this time of complete collapse, chaos, and ignorance. But most historians today see that as a massive oversimplification. Sure, there was disruption and some classical knowledge was lost, but it was also an era of profound transformation, where new cultures, new languages, and new kingdoms were being forged from the ashes of the old Roman world.
And that leads us to our final, and maybe our most important point. While the political thing known as the Western Roman Empire disappeared from the map, the idea of Rome, well, that was far too powerful to die. Its legacy endured, and it shaped the very world we're living in today.
Just look at this breakdown. Roman law gave a sophisticated, ready-made framework that a lot of the new Germanic kingdoms just adopted. The Romance languages, Spanish, French, Italian, are direct descendants of the Latin spoken by the Romans. They're like a linguistic ghost of the empire. Their engineering, our ideas about republics and senates, it all echoes Rome. And maybe most importantly, the Christian faith, which was adopted by the empire, was carried forward by the Roman Church. The Church preserved not just the religion, but also the Latin language and Roman ways of organizing things, becoming a central unifying force in this post-Roman Europe.
So the real takeaway here is this. The political fall in 476 AD was just one part of the story. The civilization that Rome had built didn't just vanish, it transformed. It became the foundation, the bedrock, upon which the next 1,000 years of European history would be built. You could say the hardware of the empire failed, but its operating system was adopted by pretty much everyone who came next.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We mark 476 AD as an ending, but maybe it's better to see it as a metamorphosis. If an empire's laws are still cited, if its languages are still spoken, and if its buildings still stand, has it truly fallen? Or does it simply live on in a different form? The body of Rome may have died, but its ghost continues to haunt the world.